Okay, thanks. I'm just going to start us off today because neither our chair or our vice chair is here. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda. And I'd just like to add a does anyone else have a late items for the agenda?
Just that we might need to vote in Jeremy as acting chair.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So for my late item for the agenda, thank you, Councillor. We'd be after we approve the agenda, we'll do a vote for Jeremy Howe to be our chair. Okay.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. And a seconder, please.
So moved.
And all in favor? Great. And now I'll call for a nomination for chair.
I'll nominate Jeremy as chair.
Okay, that is moved. Do I have a seconder? Nicola, all in favor? Wonderful. Thank you, Jeremy. Take it from here.
Okay, adoption of the minutes. I don't know if everybody has had a chance to read them, which was a while ago in April. Do I have any comments?
So I had a question, and it could be, since it's been a while, it was about the Cummings property. And I'm just looking here in terms of what the recommendations for, so people can maybe help me. I was surprised to see, I thought there was a recommendation from this committee about the covenant on the shoreline. And was that a previous minutes? Or because it doesn't seem to be in this set of minutes. So if people can help me with that. Because do people remember that?
I think it was maybe the previous meeting, because we had recommended that there was an environmental assessment was supposed to be done, and that they looked at maybe doing a covenant on the shoreline. That's my recollection. And so that this, they had done that by the time this meeting happened, I think.
Because I was concerned that it's not captured. Like I'm concerned that it got lost.
So generally with minutes, there's a lot of words to capture for the minute taker, but usually with recommendations, I'm fairly confident that what is there is what happened, because we will do a screen share often and vote on it. So just off the top of my head, I wouldn't think that something would have gotten lost for a piece like this.
So and maybe you could give me a little bit of a process. So if we make recommendations like in a previous meeting, then those have to be like, what happens to those moving forward?
Things. One, it can go straight to council. In this case, it would have gone to staff, which is Daniel Martin, and he would have included your recommendations in his report to council, whether supportive or not. And this item is on today's agenda as well. And
right, which is why I sort of went, wait a second, where's that other recommendation? So that's where I wondered. So
okay, well, we can defer adoption for now if that's what people want, and do some follow-up investigation. Councillor.
Through the chair, I'm looking at my notes from the April meeting, and at that one, I believe it, Emiko and Hamish were here to talk to us, and they talked about how they'd done a site walk with the Bowen Island Conservancy on April the 2nd. Ditch below the horse field is a channelized stream. I don't think we I don't think, I don't have any notes about a covenant at that meeting, but I do know that it has come to council. And I'm pretty sure there is, maybe Carla, you can remember, but I'm pretty sure that it's part of the current proposal, is a more beach protection, more of the public access down to the beach. And I'm not sure about a covenant though. Anyway, I don't have anything about it in my notes. I've looked through it a couple times here.
Bill?
I just want to clarify that we're talking about the same property, because the, make sure that the one that Councillor Fast just mentioned is the same one that DG is referring to, because we did talk about the rezoning application for Arbutus Bay Road, but that's covered in the minutes, basically according to the comments that Sue Ellen made. But I'm not sure that that's the same property that DG mentioned. The name doesn't match in my recollection of what DG asked.
Yeah, well, I believe, yeah, it is the same property. It's the Arbutus, it's the Cumming
Arbutus Bay
property,
Road.
Arbutus Bay Road. Yeah. And so maybe, I don't know, Steph, whether you can go back to like our previous minutes just to
And-
make sure that we're,
Yeah,
I
why
mean,
don't
I
we
hate to
defer
belabor
adoption?
this, but
We can defer adoption to the end of the meeting and give me a chance to do some work offline.
Can I just
Mhm.
interject? The, if you click on Daniel's report from the minutes, it says that mentions the shoreline covenant. And it says council supported the inclusion of a protective covenant of land within 30 meters of the sea. So I think that happened at a previous meeting, and then at this last meeting, it was presented as already being supported by council.
aha, okay, thank you. Thank
No
you.
worries.
Okay, that point seems to be resolved. Are we committed to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting of April 4th? All in favor?
I'll abstain because I was not at that meeting. So
Fair enough. Any objections? I guess we pass it.
I don't have any public comments. We have 2 delegations. So
Shall we proceed with the delegations?
Bobby, you're after Catherine, so I've just let you in, so it's not confusing. I'm gonna mute you. Catherine, you okay?
Pardon?
Hi, okay.
I just got into the Zoom, so I don't even know who's here. If I could just get a bit of introduction, it would be great. I don't know anything about this committee. I tried to get in at 7, but I didn't seem to be in. So if you could just kind of briefly and tell me what this committee is, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I'm Kathy. I'm a substituting chair for this meeting. I think we know one another.
Yeah.
And we also have as members of the committee Penny Naldred, and Sue Ellen Fast is our liaison to
Right.
council.
Mhm.
DG Blair.
Yeah.
Nicola Murray.
hi, Catherine.
Okay. Hi, Nicholas.
Phil Osborne.
Okay. Hi.
And while there are others, they were not able to attend. In terms
Okay.
of Muni reps, of course, we have Steph Short and Carla Scoos.
Mhm. So great. So I did present this kind of concern or observation to the Climate Change Committee. So I think I was pretty articulate then. I hope I am now. This happened in the spring. when I was walking Grafton Lake, which is an absolutely gorgeous path. It is beautiful. But dogs are off leash, and there's no signage saying that dogs should be on leash. As science rears its head and shows us that dogs in areas, riparian areas particularly, are very detrimental to nesting birds. And there could be, in the meantime, in the spring, this was relevant, I had asked for a sign to be put up. Let's see. Let's see if I can find my, oh yeah, there it is. Anyway, it's just a temporary sign. I don't see how to flip it around now. Oh, there it is. Which is in a park in Salmon Arm, which says, trail is closed, well, you can't see it, to dogs during nesting season. Really simple. It's just a plastic banner, and it tells people why the trail is closed to dogs during this time. We have a lot of ground nesting birds, and the dogs on leash aren't on the trails. They're all over the place. We also have some beautiful fairy orchids happening up on the ridge, a whole grove of them.
Yes. Oh, there you are.
So all of that really beautiful spring flowers and the spring nesting birds, and also the birds that we had a pair of grebes on that, which have never been sighted there before, which nest actually in the water, in the reeds. They build a nest in the reeds. So swimming dogs in the lake is not a good thing either. So there, from what I've heard, there isn't a management plan as yet for the park for that area. And I would just like to propose in the interim that we educate about dogs and ask if people could please put them on a leash and keep them out of the water. The Conservancy has done something far more radical. They have, which I think doesn't necessarily apply to this, no dogs allowed, but they've done something else which is really interesting. They put out an education sheet, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth going out to the Conservancy and taking a look at it. And it just tells you why dogs are a problem off leash in an area. And so for education, it just is better than don't put your dog on a leash, put your dog on a leash. It's more about, hey, you live on Bowen Island because you love the environment, you love what's around you. You've made a choice to live here, so let's look after it. And this is one way of doing it. So that's it. I would just like the nesting birds looked after, and the beautiful fairy orchids and those other little tiny things that bloom for like a week in the spring. There you go. That's it. And I think the way things work is it has to be a directive from committees to council. But I'm not quite sure how that works. Anyway.
Just a question, Kathy. Are fairy orchids the same as coral roots?
No,
Okay.
they're not.
Calypso.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, calypso orchids. Yes, I know them.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, beautiful orchids. I couldn't believe it. It was almost like it was a whole ridge of them. When you climb up the big kind of steep hill, right at the top of that, and then you look up, that whole top ridge was all covered. And there was someone in there with his dog looking for mushrooms, and the dog was not on a leash. So, also, and part two is I was at one point walking with someone earlier in January, and she had been attacked by a dog as a young kid. So she's pretty nervous around dogs. She manages, but anyway, we had a professional dog walker who lives on Bowen who had 5 dogs off leash, and one just took off and flew right into my face. It was just amazing, but I just stood still. But the person beside me, if it had happened to her, it wouldn't have worked like that. She would have gone crazy and the dog would have gone crazy. Anyway, that's all. I'll see ya. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate your efforts with this. It's important.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. Okay, bye.
See you, Kathy. Can that be made note of, Steph, to deal with in future?
Yes, thank you.
Second in the delegations is Bobby Parker, Cape Roger Curtis property owner.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Is it possible to share my screen?
I think so.
I think I need to be given permission to do that. Is that too?
Permission granted.
But I mean within Zoom.
If you pull your
Oh.
cursor down the screen, do you get the share screen button at the bottom?
Not that I see.
Do you see the participants button?
I do. Oh, let
Okay.
me see.
Steph may need to give it to her.
When I see participants, I see invite and copy invite link.
Next to participants, to the right is chat, to the right of that is
Chat.
share screen in green.
Oh, I see it now. I'm so sorry.
No
Thank you so
worries.
much.
Good.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it quickly as I can here. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to talk to you quickly about the Roger Curtis Trail that is on lot 47 at the Cape. The street address for that is 1805 Cape Drive. As you all probably know, in the Cape, we have White Sails Trail, which runs north to south, in the north coming from DC Road, running down to Cape Drive and Hazard Creek Road. And then we have Roger Curtis Trail, which runs east to west from Cape Drive to Cape Drive. And the section I wanted to talk to you about today is the west side of Roger Curtis Trail. And this map here, you can see, I got this from Tyler. It's a Strava Global heat map, and it shows the use of trails out at the Cape. You can see that DC Road is well used, Cape Drive is well used, all the trails out at Ferry Fen are well used. White Sails Trail is well used, as well as Roger Curtis on the east side, but the west side is not very used here. Here's another heat map. You can see again the trails that are well used out there. Here, not so much, and it's comes up about as much as the private driveways in the area. So not a well-used trail, according to this heat map. Here you can see the property lines, and this section of Roger Curtis Trail is a statutory right-of-way on lot 47. I am lot 46, and when we had our lot surveyed property line, we could see that the trail had strayed over onto our property a bit. And I talked to Carla about this, and she suggested that I come and talk to the committee, because in looking at this trail, especially in this area here, it's some tricky terrain. And I was just wondering if maybe there might be a better solution when looking at moving this trail, which it'll have to be moved back to its original statutory right-of-way location. This is just a copy from that document here of the Area 1 and Area 2. So I'm just going to quickly just go through the trail so you can have a sense of what it looks like starting down here on Cape Drive. When you come up, firstly, the sign shows it as White Sails Trail, which it's not. It's Cape Roger, or it's Roger Curtis Trail. So this says White Sails, but that's incorrect. And it comes up here. There's a lot of alders growing here now on both sides of the property, so it's quite difficult to see. You can see here it's not obviously well used in comparison to other trails in the area. And you have 2 sets of stairs you climb to go up to the trail. You can see here, if you continue up the stairways, it's not very clear of where to go. This middle picture is at the top of the first set of stairs, and then you can see the second set. Once you get to the top of that set, again, it's not particularly clear where to go on the trail. And just from being out there, I've seen many people look quite confused, and I wave at them and show them the way, which is, again, not very often that I see people out there. But when they do, there's a lot of wandering around onto the two different lots. Here you can see that's my car there. When you're looking around, people kind of can wander around. It's not a particularly clear trail. Here you can see the property marker and where most people end up going, or where I think it trail should or is right now. I think it should be over a bit more. But you can see it starts going, and this is where it starts to hit our property line and go over onto our lot. And you can see here in this picture that it's not particularly clear where the trail is or where you should be headed. Here again, I've pointed out where I think this is about on the property line, and you can see here that where it's a bit more worn is right on the line here. When you get to this part here, it's quite overgrown and there's no way to really get through the trail or see where to go. And you have to go around onto our property, which will soon be our septic field potentially. And then here you'll see when you walk around, you come to the other side. And again, this is right on the property line. Once you get past that a bit, it clears up a bit, but again, not super clear of where to go. And yes, you can kind of go up here. And I think this is where it starts to stray a little bit over. This definitely, I feel quite confident, does come over here. There's also a tree down that you have to climb over to go across to come up. And this is quite steep area here along the trail. Where the trail should be on here, it's right on the edge of the incline. So I think it would be a challenging area, but what do I know? I don't build trails. So, and here you can see where I think it comes back on around this steep bluff here, but then it curves around again. Oops, excuse me. And here's the back of the lot here on the property marker. And when you look up, the lot line goes about this way, and the trail has come in over about over here. This is quite flat and easy to fix. Here is the back on White Sails Trail, and you can see this is a very clearly well-used trail. People are on it a lot. I walk this trail myself quite a bit with my family and my dogs and neighbors, and it's a well-known area. I think down here it comes actually more about here onto lot 45 here, and this road, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. It's another statutory right-of-way on lot 45, but it's paved, and it connects down to the Cape Drive here. And this is the route I usually take when I'm with my smaller kids who don't want necessarily a longer hike. It also connects, I think most people end up walking on it a little bit here. When you come up from White Sails Trail, I think the trail is actually more about like that. And it is a driveway to one other lot over here. This lot is lot 45, and it's still an available lot from the developer. It hasn't been sold yet. And I just thought that maybe this might be a more appropriate right-of-way trail to use if this becomes, a tricky trail to fix and move over. So it was just something I wanted to suggest as something to maybe explore and look at. Because as you can see here in this picture, you can clearly see it's not a very well-used trail at all. You can also see, right here is where it is. You can also see where there's a lot of straying off of the trail. And then this is the statutory right-of-way on 45, which does get equal use before you hit the Cape. So yes, that's my, just want to bring attention to the committee as perhaps an option that the trail does need to be moved, but maybe there's an option, other options for it to be switched over to another statutory right-of-way area. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Any particular comments from the committee? None? Carla, oh, go ahead, Sue Ellen.
I have a question.
Mhm.
What is Strava?
It's a Tyler brought it to my attention in another committee meeting. It's a Strava is a I guess it's an app. It's also, you can have it on your phone, and a lot of people use it to track their miles, I guess, and their exercise and their hiking. You can also see in it, it looks like there's a swim Bowen triangle off of Tunstall Bay there. So it doesn't necessarily represent everyone who's walking out there, but it's a decent representation of the use of trails. I know it was being used to look at other committees.
I'm just wondering, Carla, can this be looked at or re-examined, the existing trail? There was a fair bit of infrastructure that was put in place in terms of the stairs and so on, just to see if that can be appropriately mitigated given the topography.
Well, I mean, it's certainly something that the committee could talk about. I think that, you know, as a matter of process, we should talk about it at a future meeting. But yeah, we can talk about it. We could potentially go on a walkabout and make an assessment of what kind of work would have to be done to realign the trail, and if we think that work is worth doing, and whether we think it might be easier to try and get the other alternative right of way rather than doing that work.
TG?
Yeah, thanks, Bobby, for bringing this to our attention, because you know, as you can appreciate, we can't be out everywhere, and if it weren't for folks like you coming and bringing it to our attention, then we'd never know about the fact that the trail is actually not where it's supposed to be. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to do that, and it's such a really well presented bit of information, and I think it'll really help us add it to our work plan to figure out what to do, because in my view, we have to figure out something, but obviously not at today's meeting. We'll have to
sure.
put it to, yeah. So anyways, just wanted to say thanks.
My pleasure.
I'll just add my voice to that too, Bobby. Thank you. You did go to a lot of trouble there. We appreciate that. And I've never seen one of those heat maps, to be honest. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Didn't track traffic that way, so that was really interesting. Yeah, and I'd be happy to go and do a walkabout there to have a closer look at it. So thanks, Bobby.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for hearing me today. I'm going to jump off. I'm on holiday right now. It's my daughter's birthday, so I'm going to scooch over to dinner, but I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen to that. So
Yeah.
have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Bobby. Okay, I guess we proceed to item 5.1, rezoning application.
Sorry to interrupt, Jeremy. Am I making an action item about a walkabout? Or-
Yeah, I guess we should. Can you, maybe we should do
we
a
can talk
poll.
about it next meeting.
Well, or we could send out a poll about arranging a time that everybody could attend. Certainly worth exploring.
Could I suggest that we add it to a future agenda, like add it to the September agenda or something like that?
Sure.
And then we can schedule a walkabout. And
Oh, right. Yes, copy that. Okay. Everyone agree with that? Okay. Thank you.
So on to item 5.1, rezoning application for Arbutus Bay. Daniel Martin has something to tell us.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I have a short presentation I'll just load here to walk you through what I'm here to talk to you about. So this is bylaw 598. It's a rezoning application at 8 Arbutus Bay Road. There we go. All right. So this is located, this is south shore of Bowen, and this committee, along with other committees, we did a site visit here in, I think, January in the pouring rain. So committee members probably remember that. So this had gone to council in February. Council gave first reading to a bylaw, and they had referred it to a number of committees, including the Parks and Trails Committee. And one of the other things that the committee had asked for and council required was an updated environmental assessment of the proposal. So the application had come with one that was completed sometime before, and this committee had wanted an updated one. Council required that of the applicant. And so I last came to you April 4th on this rezoning application, and some of the things you said is looking for public pedestrian access to and through the park and beach at Echo Bay be provided, and the access to the viewpoint above and on the north side of Echo Bay for people with mobility challenges be ensured. Some of the other things that came through that referral process is, and I have here the Islands Trust Conservancy, but the Islands Trust Conservancy and the Bowen Island Conservancy both had this referred to them for consideration of transferring the future park to their care, and both of those organizations declined the park transfer. The applicant provided an updated environmental assessment from Madison Consultants, and it identified some additional riparian areas on the site, and so they have adjusted the site plan, and I'll get to that, but adjusted the site plan based on that revised environmental assessment. The applicant held neighbors updates with the neighbors. And then the Housing Advisory Committee recommended to council that council amend the bylaw to include 2 additional smaller lots in the rezoning, feeling that the subdivision and the development should have more diverse housing, so having some smaller houses as part of the development. And this application is proposed to provide a cash in lieu contribution for the affordable housing, and so they proposed a formula that is there, but essentially it would work out to be with the 9-lot version, it would be about $140,000 contribution to the affordable housing reserve in lieu of providing housing on site. So this was the application that had come before you. So showing the road coming down through the park, sort of on both sides of the road skirting this side of the property and coming down. And then this was the park as we had seen it before at Echo Bay. And so what the revision is for the road to actually come down closer to this side of the property through the middle, the park being there's 2 parts at the top, park in here, park through here, and then a larger park around Echo Bay south. And then, yeah, I'll just go through the different parts. So showing essentially like a park zone at the northern end of the site in the middle of the park. And then this is just showing the riparian area that was identified in the environmental assessment is this drainage that runs across the property. And the environmentalist identified a 10-meter SPIA for that drainage. So things like this is showing a common septic field and trying to locate it outside of the SPIA in that development.
Can you describe the SPIA for those
Sure, sorry.
committee members?
Yeah, so the SPIA is for a riparian area. The SPIA is the Streamside Protection Enhancement Area. And essentially it's when you do the assessment under the riparian area protection regulation from the province, you sort of categorize the type of water course that it is. If it's there's different categories, and that gives you a different width of SPIA that you can't develop within. And then this is just showing then that that park around Echo Bay sort of enlarged to sort of capture the entire bay. Right, and so then there's a amended bylaw that would reflect that different area with it, and it would permit in this area 2 at the north of the property, it would allow 3 lots, 2 smaller lots and 1 balance the remainder lot So this came to council June 26th, and council agreed with the Housing Advisory Committee recommendation. So they rescinded the first reading of the bylaw. They amended the bylaw to include 2 additional lots. They read that bylaw a first time, and then they referred the amended bylaw to the same group. So the Islands Trust, the APC, the Housing Advisory Committee, and this committee for comment on the revision. And then wanted, again, the applicant to update neighbors on the status. And then what we would do is we're doing this round of referrals based on the amended, and we'll bring that back to council, and council would then be able to give second reading to a bylaw and refer to a public hearing, assuming it proceeds. So I'm here tonight to look for any comments that you have on this application and the amended bylaw. Thanks.
Any comments from the committee?
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
I found the recommendation that DG was referring to. It's from January 17th, and I put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks. So that would have been the first time I came to this
Yeah.
committee for this
You
one.
weren't here, Daniel. There was concern that the covenant piece had been missed when we were adopting the minutes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
DG?
So relevant to that, when I was looking at the map, I didn't see the covenant, the shoreline covenant. So could you explain where that is?
Yes, and yeah, I'm just looking through the documents.
While Daniel's looking, can you guys confirm that you can see the chat?
Yeah, it took me a while to get it open, but I managed to
Okay,
find, yeah.
I've done an upgrade, so it's all different to me, the interface. But, okay, good.
Yeah, yeah, Zoom just did something that I'm not terribly happy with, but change is hard.
Downgrade.
Change is hard.
Let me, if you just give me a sec, I'll pull up the plans that show, like the revised plans have the shoreline covenant mapped, and then they have in their application, they map the area of that would be park and that would be within the shoreline covenant, and they actually give that breakdown.
Okay, because I was concerned that the coastal bluff part of the shoreline is not included in the covenant.
Okay.
But maybe I'm just not seeing the right spot.
Sure.
Any other comments in the interim?
I have 2 questions. One is the conservation development policy, is it meeting the 50%?
It is meeting the 50%. Okay.
And the other
Sorry.
question I had was about parking. I thought I saw some parking up on one side, but quite far up from the cove.
Yeah, in essence, what they are proposing is parking area sort of, that halfway up the site. So if I find this.
I'm just wondering about accessibility. I wasn't
Right.
there for the walkabout,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, they've shown sort of a pull out in here, like this area to provide parking, so about halfway up the site.
So Daniel can't quite
Yeah.
see where you're.
Oh, sorry. Does this show up?
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Yeah.
4 spots.
Yeah.
And we had talked about parking for accessibility for the viewpoint, 1 parking spot or something down by the access to
Right
the
down in
viewpoint.
here.
Did that get included?
That's not shown. Like in here, they have it wider for a pullout area. So that's where it could be potential. Or then down at the bottom, I think, because this is the turnaround. So I know their goal has been to limit the size of sort of how much they have to cut for the road coming down, and then having the turnaround at the end. But right, it would be
remind me what-
somewhere in here.
LCP means?
Limited common property.
Oh, that's right.
So it wouldn't be a public road?
So their plan from the start had been the public road would end in here, sort of that halfway down point, and then this would become strata. I think now they're showing maybe that the public road might continue further, and then at some point it would be strata road, and then we would have a public access, like foot access over the strata road access. Yeah, and in part, part of that is their desire to have narrower right-of-ways and narrower pavement than our subdivision servicing standards. So I think what they've done now in this revised is they're showing like this width is a municipal right-of-way width, like 15 meters, and the wider road, and then it narrows when you get to here. Yeah, so I think it's still a little bit in flux, I would probably say, and that like their goal throughout it all has been to limit, you know, how much actual like road development is required all the way down to the south end of the lot. Yeah, and in part because then it's sort of the wider you make the road, you probably start pushing these people more, like the development site more into the coastal bluff area, and so the narrower and the closer to the bank you can hug the road, the more you can nudge these like 6 and 7 north and away from the sea.
Daniel, were you going to show us, or is that on a different map?
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Area?
Yeah, I just had to. Sorry, I had to stop sharing to show the. So I could just find it.
While he's looking, a couple of the things that I noticed besides the 2 additional dwellings, which aren't really things that I thought this committee might be more interested in, were the fact that there's park up in the 2 top corners, which to me allows for more connectivity in the future, depending on what happens with Carla. I see your hand. Maybe I should have. Oh, it went down. And that the park at the beach is bigger. Anyway, I'll just stop and let Daniel go ahead. Daniel.
Sure. So I'll just show you first over here. Their development has sort of the breakdown of sizes. So they flagged that the park as a percentage of the overall property is 37.2% of the property, and then this protected area from development includes the shoreline covenant to be 51.8% of the overall property, the size of the property. And then what they've just shown on this map is the 30-meter shoreline setback. So that's the green dotted line that comes along here.
Right. So that's very different than a covenant.
Yeah. And so I'm not actually clear as we're presenting if that's like we had discussed this area on the map with the applicant as being the area of like the covenant area, but they've labeled it here shoreline setback. So I just want to confirm that.
Yeah. To me, I read that the setback to be confirmed. That's quite different than the covenant.
Yeah.
Can
Covenant.
I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Couple questions, thanks. So I guess I was wondering, Daniel, if on the common property, if we did want to provide a parking spot for for people with mobility issues, like for accessibility, could that be written in somewhere, like so even if they didn't have to build it to municipal road standard, that people who were using the handicap space, that they could pass with a vehicle? Like, is that a possibility?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's technically possible. It makes it like more challenging than like other places where we have, it's like parking is here and then there's the trail that comes down. So we need to think about just how it's signed that if there's like one space at the bottom that's for accessibility parking, that it's clear, like, you know, don't drive past this point except for the accessibility access. Otherwise, yeah, I would worry that just other people would come and use it and park it, and then it wouldn't be available.
Okay. And then I had another question about the covenant area. So I don't think, for me anyways, that we have an intention of developing the beach right away. It's just maybe like an option in the future. But would the covenant, the shoreline covenant, actually preclude us from building an access there if we wanted to later on down the road?
Right. I don't think we would place it on our own park.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question for everybody. Generally, in order to make this an appealing and publicly accessible park, I know Sue Ellen and I think with Betty Morton had hiked up on the larger section in terms of scoping a trail. Is that does that remain an idea for the future? It would be the primary kind of interactive space for people who are visiting the park. Any comments on that? Obviously, do you have any ideas, Sue Ellen, seeing as you were there?
I don't remember what the proponents are proposing at this moment, but I do remember walking through it. It was a beautiful walk, and but where it fits with the different things that are in the park plan and the projects that are in our work plan and all that kind of thing, how soon it's good to get those things in early, so you're not coming in later and people are already used to the idea, the new owners. But you're right, I don't see a trail marked on that over that over the knob. I think I'm looking at, by the way, keep looking away. I'm looking at a plan I brought up from the link to the June 14th council. It's in the package here, June 14th. Anyway, it might be something to make sure we have the option to do in the future if it's of interest. It seems to me it would be a really nice loop from the little parking spot to go up and over the top of the park. But where it would come down, I'm not sure, because I think we came down right into close to the houses there. Wasn't that, Jeremy? Anyway, route aside, we may want to, if we think that this would be rather than just a one-way down the pavement to the shoreline park, when and if that access is ever developed, a loop trail might be a really good idea to have. But if it's park, we would have the opportunity to do that, right? If it was municipal park, right? Is that correct, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, sorry, go ahead, Sue.
No, just so we would have that option, and I like the and I think, Daniel, if you show where that horse field is still going to be covenanted as well, just for the green the green connectivity, I guess.
Yeah. Like in this middle part of the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where it says coming property.
Yeah.
Because that's great, because that means that it would connect over the access road to the anyway, there's more connectivity. If you think about that, the purple that says coming property there as being also green, just a horse paddock pasture. It's not exactly natural, but it would allow theoretically some wildlife at least to move through it. seeds and wildflowers and things like that, butterflies. And thanks. I think there's possibilities here. I agree. I just looked it up in the staff report. There's a couple places that the covenant is mentioned, but I can't find it on any maps either as being marked in. It's possible they were, that was part of the discussion with the Conservancy and the Islands Trust Conservancy as well, but I don't, the municipality can hold covenants too. And maybe you could speak to that a bit, Daniel.
Just that I've made that note, and to ensure that when we come back to council to mark in like the covenant on that larger lot. And
oh, I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he's texting me. I'm making fun of his frozen faces.
So
sorry,
is there, go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, I don't know if we can do it, but just I don't know where I froze, but just saying that when I come back to council, I would be ensuring that we were marking clearly the pasture covenant, like on that part of the land, and the shoreline covenant, and that they're clearly marked, and that council's aware of where they are, and that would be part of going forward. Is like, yeah.
Thank you.
And it would be like a condition of the rezoning.
Yeah, and I would be curious about like how deep the proposed covenant is. Like, we have no information.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, when I've discussed this with the applicant, we had discussed that 30-meter line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like we discussed the drawings and that green line, and discussed a bit like the green line goes through the existing houses.
Yeah.
And how we would be addressing that, but we had addressed that green line as the covenant line.
Great, thank you for that.
I just see Penny's hand has been up for a while.
Oh, go ahead, Penny.
Oh, yeah, no, I just want to clarify that all of the surrounding properties are privately owned. There's like, there's no connection to the golf course trails or anything from there.
Correct. There's no connection at this point.
Apropos of that, I'm just, as a general impression, well, it's great to have green space in whatever context. I don't see a lot of particular current integration into anything, or any particular reason why people might be motivated to visit that as a park. There's a bit of disjointedness maybe in it. I don't know what anybody else's impressions are overall about the proposal. I mean, it's fine to have green space wherever you can get it, to be sure. And it helps preserve, obviously, the endemic wildlife and biology. But as a visitable park space, I don't see it as having a lot of cohesion or motivation to go there. Anybody else have an impression on that regard? DG?
Yeah, I just I was actually just about to raise that point about how, when you look at what they had originally proposed with the park coming from the top, and then you could actually walk from the top of the property through the park all the way down to the ocean. And now the park is in two discrete units. And so I was just raising that in terms of usability of the space. That doesn't seem ideal to me. And I think I understand why they've done it, but I don't know. I just thought it might be worth discussing that, because it does lower like the idea of being able to have some sort of loop, or you don't have as much to work with when you have the two discrete areas. Or is it
Penny, and then Nicola, you had ideas, comments?
Yeah, I missed the walkabout there, so I can't speak too directly about what it looks like. I am curious to go and have a look. I'm curious about the water access in particular, because we don't, that I think that area for water access can be quite nice at certain times of the day, especially that we don't have a lot on that side of the island. But as you said, Jeremy, I think Green Space, I mean, even if it just turned out to be a neighborhood park, then, that's okay too. So, yeah, I just agree. Get park where we can get it, and then see what happens. So, but I will go out and have a look. Is it accessible now? Can we just go, or is it just sort of private property right now?
It's private property right now. I could speak to the applicants if they want, like if we want to set up another visit.
No, that's okay. I can wait until it's all organized and then I'll go. We don't need to do no special visit needed, but I'm curious about it, so I'll go when I can. Thanks.
Annie, did you have another comment?
No, I'm okay. But I'm in agreement with the folks, what people are saying.
Sue Ellen?
Yeah, if I just want to make sure I'm understanding what people are saying is that having the park fragmented and divided by an area of private property limits the usability of the park. Is that okay?
Yeah, that was my thought, that, because it's almost like you've got two separate little parks.
Can
Yeah,
I
I guess
ask
people would have
about
to-
that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask then, would making essentially this border, which was park before, having that again be park, sort of what side is that, eastern edge of this lot, be
Mhm.
park, so they sort of do connect? Would that help?
Oh, for sure. In my view, it would.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's a bunch of sorry.
Go ahead.
In the OCP, there's a bunch of places where it talks about greenways and connectivity for nature. And I think if there's a way to connect the separate parcels up the side of alongside somehow the horse field without, I know they want to keep the horse field there too, which is good, but the connectivity would be a really good idea. And that's just me speaking as part of this committee.
Okay. I mean, I know, sort of looking at the map, it's like, because they're showing this waterway on the side, it means taking like a park strip that's equal to that would mean, I don't know if we could put a trail in because it would be within the SPIA and so protected, but would provide the green connectivity, or would have to be a bit wider than that to fit if the goal is for like trail connection and not just like sort of physical connection.
DG?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that trail connection would be important.
Yeah.
And so maybe it could just be next to the road. I mean, have a little buffer. And I mean, obviously going down in full in nature would be better, but as you point out, it would have to be outside of the SPIA. So, and then cross it somehow. Well, you're going to have to. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anybody see in terms of the current proposal, see any potential future connections to aspired trails in the future? Any way that could connect this meaningfully to the broad conceptual wish list that we have in the OCP? I mean, it does seem to me offhand kind of an isolated embayment in terms of possibilities of trails, but and really more having a park-like character, but does anybody see any potential connectivity to future trail networks?
Well, it doesn't seem that far from the golf course trails, which has, you know, a lovely connection all the way up
Mhm.
to the top there. But I'm always mindful of building trails that people won't use and the cost of upkeeping trails.
Yeah, seemingly the only real connection would somehow be through Rivendell, the Rivendell property there. But beyond that, to the west, I'm not sure that there really is much, but I don't really know. Go ahead, Sue Ellen.
It's a really good question. I've just been looking through some maps, and I don't think there is a kind of, I think the best place to look would be in the OCP, where we have one of the schedules.
I can pull it up, Sue Ellen. I have it.
That would be great. And because this is kind of the sketch. There's Echo Bay down there, maybe.
Yeah, in here.
Anyway, this is the kind of work that this committee and others had in the last OCP about 10 years ago. So you can see sort of the beginnings of a trail network back in there. But the idea of what I wanted to say was, I think as this park and trail system, when it's established, I did hear at one of the meetings that I believe it was from Rivendell proponent back in my notes years ago, said, well, I imagine that people from staying at the Rivendell facility would use this, come down and visit the beach. And so, you know, there will be probably neighbors and others using that property. Can you point with your cursor to where the Rivendell property is? And
Sure, it's essentially this triangle.
okay, thank you. And anyway, but you know, if the option, by having those two park pieces up at the top, the option for connectivity up towards the big crown block up there that has the words Radar Hill on it,
Yeah.
Is one that I would be looking for in terms of the nature connectivity, not necessarily the trails. And you can see the roads sort of on the map, map there too. I don't know if that helps, but you can see the golf course, the trail around the golf course is there. Just to yeah. Does Rivendell? Where does Rivendell? Do they have a public road that goes to it? Probably not, eh?
They come down. This is public road, and it's the road to the Fairweather Strata, and then it comes down, and then it comes kind of back up, and it comes in like this.
Okay.
I think it's the route.
Okay. Anyway, but it's always a bit of a forecasting, trying to look into the future, and that's what the official community plan tries to do. This is, I think, the best look into the sustainable future of Bowen Island for trails.
Yeah, I don't see any real potential for connectivity ultimately to the Roger Curtis lands at all. There's a lot of private property in there. Well, potentially, I suppose, in the future, if they ever wanted to do anything with that, maybe we should keep that in mind.
I will add, if I may,
Mhm.
that at council on Monday night, we heard from Councillor Judy Getty, had seen or heard about Metro Vancouver Parks inquiring about the big crown block with the province. So about the transfer of the crown block. I don't know how true that is, but it does speak to the, I mean, I haven't seen anything about it, but it does speak to the possibility of the future of crown lands not always staying the same. And for example, Fairy Fen Nature Reserve, when it was established back in, 15 years ago or something like that. People didn't think that it would happen, but crown lands do change, and they can also be protected for nature, and have trails running in them now, like the trails that run down from Quarry Park. So possibilities exist.
Sure, and we should keep those in mind.
Got some notes on a recommendation.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steph. I was just about to ask about that.
Be kind.
What do you have that
I've got,
may stimulate all
pretty
these ideas?
So I'm confident about the shoreline, so that the shoreline covenant, 30 meters, and the horse pasture covenant be indicated on maps and included as an identified condition of rezoning. That makes sense?
Yeah,
Okay, thumbs up on that. We can maybe reword it when we get there. And then I think the second bullet is, Carla mentioned this, it didn't go on for a long time, but something about passing through strata property to get to accessibility. Is that gonna land, or did I capture that?
I'm curious about that, because it's not, do we need to have road access all the way down to a bench? Is that what people are thinking about? Or is that short walk, which is kind of a steep little area there that's labeled LCP, the local common property part? Is that something this committee is interested in, is having a parking spot all the way down at the beach park or portion? Or am I misunderstanding something? Could somebody be dropped off at the turnaround loop on the common road, or?
I think it would be great to have, if possible, a parking spot close to the potential future beach access.
Or
accessible
is-
parking.
yeah, I think I would, Penny, sort of second that. I think it would be nice. I think what we had talked about, and I would agree with, is to have one parking spot so that somebody could access. I think we talked about the viewpoint, because it's very steep to get. There's no way, if somebody was mobility impaired, they could get down to the beach, even with stairs and whatnot. I think but the viewpoint is lovely, and it would be nice to enable access to the viewpoint. So that's what I was thinking, without,
Thanks. That helps.
losing anybody, the wheelchair getting too fast, from the parking spot down to, or wear out their brakes or whatever on the way down and not be able to get back up. Or
So Steph, I think maybe that instead of passage, you want to write vehicle access.
and maybe we could just sort of say one accessibility parking spot or something, to just make it clear we're not asking for a whole lot, just one
Vehicle
spot.
access
Yeah.
to an accessible parking space.
Yeah. And to access the viewpoint or something in the park, to access the viewpoint in the park.
The viewpoint at the beach park?
Right, the beach portion of the park or something. Yeah, you're right.
Those conjures up an image of a lot traffic. Individuals.
Yeah,
or
right.
Permitted to can wordsmith it offline if people are okay with the intention of that bullet. How are we feeling about this bullet?
You're a little quiet, Steph. If you could turn up your.
How are you feeling about this bullet?
I'm okay with
Pretty
it.
close, I think.
Did we go on to the next bullet and see if?
Yeah. I would word this next one a little bit stronger. Maybe say something like you got the essence of it, but it's sort of, it's kind of maybe. And I think what we were saying is that this would be a good idea.
No, reconfigured.
Yeah. By including the eastern edge of parcel 3 as park. Yeah. Maybe just the park space.
Be cohesive.
You just include.
I think it's
Yeah.
also, it's not just usability, but it's also the connectivity for nature.
Yeah. Connectivity, nature connectivity. And then you could probably get rid of cohesion. That park space include.
The designated, maybe designated park space.
Put a comma after parcel 3 as park, comma. See if it makes more sense then.
Okay. But also, was the eastern, including the eastern edge, one of the options? Was there also road?
Oh, right.
Eastern edge.
Could, yeah,
Right.
could run along the edge of the road or against the edge of the park on the outside.
Right.
Or
Eastern or western.
Right.
western roadway.
The margin of the road, really,
Margin.
or along the roadway.
Or along here.
Yeah, something like that.
Could you,
Yeah.
where it says, west, comma, as park, comma,
Mm,
as the, could you say because the current
Yeah.
fragmentation? Maybe that'll be clearer.
Yeah.
Why don't I say either? So we're doing an or, either the eastern edge of parcel 3.
Mhm.
Or it needs to be a noun here, phrase. Or
Include, or
along doesn't belong here, Phil. It's got to go. Or the edge of the roadway. Or
Yep.
run along. We need a verb. Okay.
what do you think, Jeremy? Does that make sense?
Yes, in my limited field of comprehension, it seems to make sense. I think most people could understand that. Any objections to that?
I wonder if it could be clearer by saying connect the two, connect the park.
Our spaces be connected
Yeah,
by including,
that would be better. Easier for
okay,
others to understand, I think.
okay. This is very irritating, but I think we need it. Okay.
I don't think you need the in front of the run along the roadway.
Okay, I can do grammar offline. We need to move on. Jeremy, you gotta get
Any,
control of these
any
grammaticians.
difficulties with that?
Need a mover.
Okay, no. Do I have a, can we have a vote on this? Any,
We need a mover and a seconder.
I can move. It's Phil.
Second,
all in favor? Okay. Carried.
And
As I stumble through this process, I guess that covers item 6.1. We're now on to bench policy 6.2.
Mm,
Caroline,
no.
No, sorry, that was
no.
5.1.
sorry. Oh, I've skipped. I have skipped. Yes, 6.1 Tunstall Bay Beach Stabilization Project. That's Carly, you have a report?
Okay, yeah. So Tunstall Bay, I feel like has been on the back burner for a little bit. I know we've been wanting to talk about it for at least the last couple of meetings. It came up, well, it's come up since 2021, the end of 2021, or maybe it was early 2022, when some storm surges did some serious damage there, and there was significant erosion at the beach, and the alder that was closest to the beach fell, and we ended up with a pretty steep drop off at the end of the pathway. And so we had a preliminary design done by Golder and Associates. So you guys have that on the agenda. I don't know if I need to share my screen at all so you guys can see the pictures, but I think everyone is pretty aware of maybe what that looks like. Would you like me to share a screen or? Yeah, okay. Okay, everyone can see that now, or? So earlier this year when we were doing budgeting, I was looking at how we might be able to do, you know, a beach nourishment project. And that was, you know, recommended in this preliminary review. Here's some pictures of the damage here. And looking up here. And there's the walkway there. So some boulders were placed there as a temporary measure, just to allow people to have a bit of a step so they weren't dropping off, like it was about a 2-foot drop there. And that's where the tree went out there. So it was recommended that we could do a beach nourishment project, and that had a pretty reasonable chance of success if we got proper engineered plans done that included looking at flood levels and sea level rise and the wave conditions. And I looked at some grant funding of maybe getting a infrastructure planning grant. And then there was a project happening that had nothing to do with Tunstall, but they had to do a habitat compensation. So we were looking at getting a little bit more money through that to do some plantings, native plantings. They can't actually contribute to the beach nourishment, but they would do native plantings in the area. So when it came down to it though, when we talked about it with the engineers, the price was looking more like it was going to be about $100,000 to $150,000. And we have not budgeted that much. It would take quite a bit of grant funding. And quite a bit of time. And I'm concerned that because this is a community beach and we should be, it should be accessible. We don't have a lot of beaches that are accessible to people with mobility issues, that we want to do repairs now. And I don't think that these repairs would exclude us from doing a beach nourishment project later. But I don't want to have another summer where the beach is inaccessible to a lot of people that I think it should be accessible to. We wouldn't plan on doing any additional disturbance. It would just be work on the pathway, and we would kind of leave the rest as is for now. I think that potentially the planting could still happen. And in the meantime, we could look for funding potentially to add to that project and perhaps do that at the same time. But I think it's time to make the pathway safe and accessible. So I just wanted to make sure that we talked about it a little bit before we went ahead with that work. Yeah, I see DG has her hand up already. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that, thank you. One thing that came to mind right away is that the municipality could apply for some planning grant through the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. They have the CEPF, they have specifically identified nature-based projects as being a high priority for shorelines. And we've been successful with 3 other municipalities to get funding through that source. So you can get up to $150,000 of planning funding and up to $2 million of construction costs. So if you're planning to do a nature-based approach like beach nourishment. So that's something that came in mind. And I believe the next grant intake is in October. So it would be probably a good idea to start thinking about that. But in terms of any temporary measures, I think I agree you need to provide access. But I would encourage you not to do to save that planting money. I wouldn't do any planting until you have a complete design based on some funding.
Okay, that's fair. For the planting, I'm not sure if they have a time limit because it's with DFO. So probably it could be stalled, but there might be a time limit where maybe we could also try to find a different project for them to do as well, though. They kind of need to do something on public land so that the DFO knows that it will survive in perpetuity kind of thing and not eventually get developed.
Sue Ellen?
Yeah, I was just, is that the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund?
Yes.
Through the nature-based, is that a federation of Canadian municipalities?
No, it's a provincial grant. I believe they get some federal funding that goes through the province, but it's administered through the UBCM.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and they've just on Tuesday they just announced the last round of recipients, of which the Comox Valley Regional District got almost $1.2 million to do a restoration at Dyke Road Park. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I could send the link, Carla, to you. They haven't announced. Don't know whether they've announced, but they did last year. They did October and January or something like that.
That sounds positive. And just for the record,
there we go. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, I see. In the chat.
Yeah.
And I see, Phil, you're the senior author on the phase 1 assessment. So just so everybody's aware. Phil's the expert here, as well as DG on the restoration with the plants and we've got a lot of good stuff happening on this committee.
See, I got a page not found there on that one. Hang on, Phil.
Anything further on this consideration? We covered the bases.
Well, do you need a motion from us, Carla? No.
I don't think so. I just wanted to kind of run it by everybody and let them know why we're planning on doing what we're planning on doing. And, you know, I didn't want you to go there and be shocked or.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I'll just say I'm kind of excited at seeing the phase 1 assessment and what needs doing, and then that can be really useful to help get that kind of grant money. And anyway, I'm excited. It just feels like a little window kind of opened. Thank you.
Moving on then, 6.2 bench policy, Carla.
Thanks. So first off, I need to apologize to this committee because there was a recommendation to council and then a council resolution for staff to prepare a bench policy. And at this point, that was several years ago, and it kind of fell off the radar because we hadn't gotten any requests for any memorial benches in several years, and it just didn't seem like a huge priority anymore. But all of a sudden, we've had quite a few in the last little bit. So we had a request from the Cassidys. So Maya Cassidy is a teenager who recently passed, and her parents wanted to get a bench down at Seymour Bay, and I worked with them to get a CPSA signed. The CPSA is a collaborative project service agreement, and that's how we've done the agreements for memorial benches before. And it basically just says sets out our responsibilities and their responsibilities, and basically just says that they will purchase the bench and pay for all the installation, and we just have to confirm that we're okay with the placement and the bench style and the wording of the plaque and that kind of thing. And then the bench becomes our, public property kind of thing. So that one was done already. The CPSA has been signed and they're installing that at Seymour Bay. But I wanted to make sure before I did another one that we spoke about it and that we talked about actually doing a bench policy. What I wanted to get feedback on was a couple of things. First of all, if we want to just have something really straightforward, which I can just write. I also, if everyone's really interested in what a bench policy looks like, we could also strike a subcommittee where we could talk more in depth about it and see what kind of things you guys might like to include in a bench policy. Potentially we also don't have to write a bench policy. I mean, we do have the collaborative project services policy, I think it's called, and then there is some talk of in the donor recognition policy, how plaques are allowed to be worded and that kind of thing. So it's touched on already in some policies. Maybe it's a good idea. We already have council direction, so we can do a simple bench policy. So I wanted to get feedback on that. I would also like to get feedback on another bench request that we've gotten and potentially get a recommendation to council for that one. So I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and show you a couple of things here. So this is the bench that they would like to purchase. And they would like it to, sorry, I had it up on the map, but I guess it's reloaded the page. So the placement of this bench would be at in Cape Arch Curtis by the lighthouse. There's the trail that comes down from the parking lot and leads to the beach there. And we scoped out a spot. That this might take a second to load, but I'll show you that in a second. I do have some. Okay, so the trail comes down kind of around here. And then there's a spot a ways up kind of in here where you would just kind of have to punch in a little bit of a trail, like for about, I think maybe 15 feet kind of thing. And then you could put the bench in here and it's quite nice. It overlooks, this is the entrance to the location. So it's mostly like bracken fern and then some salal. And the view from there is quite nice. There's no trees in front of it. It's just a lot of like really nice rose bushes and salal bushes. So you're just up on a little bit of a bench. So you're overlooking all that vegetation, but it shouldn't ever really get in the way of the view. So they wanted to go up on the bluff, but we're not really sure about where the property lines are. So rather than trying to get a survey and also having people potentially trample sensitive bluff areas, we thought this might be a better option. And I do have wording for the plaque if anyone wants to hear that, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna stop sharing for now unless anyone wants to see that again, any of those things again. Okay. So any comments on any of that?
Sue Ellen?
Yeah, thanks. I'm one of the ones who's been asking for a bench policy because what I see happening in all kinds of parks, including metro parks, is that benches are only put in if they have a sort of memorial plaque right out in the middle. So when you're walking through nature, they're almost like signs saying, this is, it's a bit, to me, it's a bit of privatization of what should be a nature experience with nothing in writing and nothing coming into the experience. And right now, municipal parks are can have benches without those plaques and in front of the library, I guess. Whereas Metro Vancouver and many other parks throughout the region, benches have the big memorial plaque in them. I know it's a way to fund them, but for me, I just want to have a discussion about, like, there is or was a bench that was up above the community center, and it just had a very small plaque down on one side. This was Islanders had donated this bench too, but it wasn't a big sort of front and center right in the middle of the backrest sign with the name. Sometimes they're people who may not have a connection with Bowen or whatever, but it's usually somebody's name or some quote, and my eyes just automatically read it, and then I'm having that experience that somebody has, it's not a nature experience. Anyway, I have questions, especially since we already have a Memorial Garden Society on Bowen, so there's an alternative. And is this a way? What do people feel about plaques on benches? Am I the only one who thinks that they're something that we should think about?
I'm kind of, I relate to what you're saying, Sue Ellen. In fact, at one point in my life, I would have even protested a bench at all in lieu of a log. But in another sense, there's a certain, they're innocuous, or can be, but I do appreciate what you're saying, because I would tend to have a similar reaction myself. I'm not sure where the general public is on that score, though.
And he has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm sure it's mixed, but I think there's a way of doing it without having it front and center where people can go and sit and know and feel connected and reflect on the person whose memory they've, asked to put this bench there, but without having to. I completely agree with the sort of privatization, like of people randomly sticking their names on things. Or it's not random, but people putting their names on here and it becoming, an area that's been claimed. So I would just ask that we do it discreetly. I think having a policy in place is really great because I think clarity around like, what is the lifetime? I read some of the, some of the other policies that you shared, Carla, and I was curious because we're also considering, I work for Hollyhock in fundraising, and we're also considering what is our memorial bench policy there. So, I just appreciate the clear terms of what the life of the bench is, what, should, if someone's name is on it and it turns out that person's not in line with the values of the community or something like that, there's a recourse we can take or a way we can have that conversation.
Sounds like a subcommittee to me.
DG and then Carla.
I wonder whether we could ask Carla to put together a draft policy for our consideration based on the comments, or at least an outline or something, just so I would find it easier to react to something if like I like in general the idea of having something discrete, like so that the whole point is you're out in nature and have something. So I appreciated, you gave some examples, but could you not write something for us? Anyways, that's my point.
I can do that. What I was hoping with the example was maybe like if you peruse them, if there was anything that stood out that this is the kind of thing that I would like to have included or not included. I do really see that this, if we're all interested in having memorial benches and having that as a way to get more benches. I mean, that was part of the parks plan. Was a lot of the feedback we received is that especially people with mobility issues wanted a place to sit, especially near the ocean, places to sit and enjoy views. So not having a big budget to put towards that, it does feel like something that we should entertain. To me, I'm okay with memorial benches, and a way that I see this committee being really helpful for that is maybe coming up with a list of places where we think that we could use them, so that we can suggest different spots. I don't think there are a ton more spots, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. Was there anything that anyone else wanted included or not included? I mean, I do get Sue Ellen's point about the memorial plaques, but I find it difficult to tell someone they can have a memorial bench, but not have a memorial plaque or not have one. I mean, in general, they're 3 inches by 7 inches or 8 inches is what you can order from the website that I was just showing you with that one bench. So, I mean, I don't know how to do that to make them less visible or, yeah.
Well, DG used the word discreet,
Mhm.
or maybe that was Penny. I just, like I said, the one that was up there by the school, between the school and the community center, before had it down on the seat by one of the arms, or low on the bench. But I know your supplier that you've been talking about. I talked to Carla about this before too. as the supplier only puts them in the middle of the back, so they're kind of out there like a it's not discreet. And I don't know what to do about that, because she's also got to think about what suppliers can she use that are going to fit in with the other benches and that aren't going to cost a fortune and be handmade and all that kind of thing. So
Nicola?
Yeah, I just quickly, I think there's a lot to consider here. I really appreciated that bench when it went in above the beach at the Cape as a place I could take my senior friends who couldn't access that area at all. There was really nowhere else to go. And so I did really appreciate when that bench went in. But when the next bench went in not too long ago at the end of, terrible with names, the first road down the lookout area there, and it's not an accessible bench. I definitely had mixed feelings about that one. Wasn't quite sure. I think it gets into that whole issue of littering benches around the island. So I think there is, as we've started the discussion, but I think there is a lot of considerations here. And I agree with Carla, it'd be pretty awkward to have somebody pay for a memorial bench and then not have some kind of plaque or something. So anyway, yeah, I'd be happy to talk more about it. Obviously, it's probably too big a topic just for tonight, though.
but that's a good point, is how far away and how level an access for people with limited mobility, I think is the way you put it. And that's where a bench is a good thing. Otherwise, you're just using a log, like Jeremy said. Yeah.
So we could certainly have a limit on how many benches we put out there. If we only have so many spots, then that there could be that limit. And one thing that I did see for comparable communities was the option to purchase a tree as well and have a memorial tree instead of a bench, or memorial planters and that kind of thing. I mean, maybe the worry, and I know what Sue Ellen's going to say, is that people are going to want to plant different species and not native species. But I'm just throwing it out there as there are other things that we can do.
I've seen, oops, sorry.
Well, I'll just say, I think there might be different kinds of benches, and whether they're these accessible nature viewpoint kinds of benches for people with limited mobility, but then there might also be benches that are for the active transportation kinds of benches, that you might have halfway going up a steep part of the trail or something like that. We had a seniors access kind of study. I forget what it was called. I can never remember the name of that study, but it talked about putting different benches, different places, like even halfway down seniors lane, so the seniors can get from their spot to the shops. So I wouldn't want to limit the benches, but we might have different categories, and maybe this group could just deal with the one type of benches at a time, for example. Penny, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I think I cut you off, but I was just going to say having other options for people is a great idea of ways of memorializing someone. I've seen boardwalks with people's names and things on them, like just a plank, but I do think that's a larger conversation.
Well, also there is still the Memorial Garden Society, and I don't know why we would duplicate that, but where we did have projects, it might be good to think about how a project could have a donor part of it or something like that. Like maybe the Tunstall Beach restoration will end up having a need for donors or something. And maybe we could set up a little subgroup or something. This is getting the conversation going here. and look at some of the benches that are on Bowen or elsewhere. I did do some looking about this, and some communities have had to kind of scale back because the trees turn into little shrines with people leave flowers at them, and all kinds of, it adds up to it adds maintenance costs and stuff too. So, but anyway, I'd be interested in a little subgroup. If a few people want to get together, we could meet at the memorial bench in Crippen Meadow or something. Anyway, let me know if anybody's
I can
interested.
can we act on that then? Carla, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Jeremy, okay, I've got Sue Ellen. Would you like to be on the subcommittee? Nicola? Sorry, I'm taking over, Jeremy.
That's fine.
Sue Ellen and Nicola, we have.
You
the
can put me on
subcommittee.
that too, staff. It'll put me with my own marker.
Yeah, okay, so Carla, Sue Ellen, Nicola, and Penny. And they'll bring back their work for review by the Parks and Trails Committee. Unanimous consent on that? No objections? Okay.
I can send out a poll, and maybe we could try to have a meeting before our next meeting, since we have a break in August. I don't know if I'm actually on vacation for a lot of August, but we'll see if we can find a date. I don't know if anyone else is going to be away, but
Me too, but let's see what we can do. Yeah. Good.
And then I'm gonna jump in again, Jeremy. We're 20 minutes over time, so I'm wondering if we should defer the updates.
The updates. Yes, sure. What else do we have that's pressing beyond those?
Nothing.
Nothing. There's nothing that anybody could add about the bits update that's succinct and brief.
The updater is not here.
I
Okay,
have a quick update.
go ahead.
Okay, just I want to let people know that there are now even more environmental reports about the Cape Roger Curtis Park. And because this group last met before most of the environmental reports had come in. And so there are environmental reports that came in the April council meeting. And there is an environmental report that just happened. There's way more info in the package that council looked at on Monday night. So if you look in those, I just wanted to alert the Parks and Trails and Greenways committee that there's a ton more info coming in, some of which is info that this committee asked for. And so I wanted to flag with you for your beach reading pleasure during the summer. But I didn't want you to be taken by surprise and go, why didn't somebody tell me? And I could have been reading all that. So that's my update.
And that has been referred to many committees, including this one. The next
Right,
meeting.
but just so you know where you can go and look at it, because it's like 400 pages.
So the best place to go is with the council. If we go to the
Monday's council agenda, and I should maybe
agenda, that was the word I was looking
I'll send
for.
a link.
I was like, it's that time of night.
Yeah.
Agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. If that's everything, people seem to be gradually zoning out here. Shall we call an adjournment? Or I suppose next meeting is
We'll poll. I think we don't have either of the.
yeah, that's
Doing a great job, but we don't have the chairs. So
okay.
yeah.
Okay, all in favor of ending the meeting? Okay,
Everybody.
thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
summer.
Nice to see everyone.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
you.
bye.
Bye for now. Bye.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks.